power can be innocent.
So now we reach to chapter 3 now, which I call preliminary matches, right? This is where the action gonna come in. This is where characters gonna meet each other and shit, right? So it starts off now with Batman going for the kryptonite, right? Because we find out, oh, it wasn't a dirty bomb, it was actually the kryptonite from the Indian Ocean, right? And you actually get a kind of a cool, action sequence with the Batmobile.
Right.
Yeah, he gunning people down and shit. He using cars to smash into cars. Okay, right?
No, but this don't bother me, This don't bother me, People just get into what Batman shouldn't kill whoever it is. That don't really bother me per se. But again, if you're gonna set something up later, kind of hard because we get that. We get that why Batman kind of going thing, and you learn later why. Again, not a bad narrative beat, not a bad character beat. So it didn't bother me as much as other people. Because it had people who was like real mad over this. But it's like it's just a clumsy Batman. It's just a clumsy action sequence that really worked for me. It's like the car kind of and it's too dark. Another problem I have is I couldn't follow a lot of the action.
Yeah,
it's like whatever.
But here's the thing. I will give Zack credit though. He actually made a Batmobile film sequence.
Yeah, I like this Batmobile. I like this Batmobile.
Yeah,
I like this Batmobile.
Right.
It really had to pull from the Tumblr aesthetically, but it's not the Tumblr. But it do its own thing, and it does. It's alright. It kind of half Tumblr, half Batmobile. But it's still looking like a crazy car Batmobile, and I like that. It's not, and it don't do the Matverse muscle car stuff. It's just do its own thing. I actually like it as a car. There's this great shot he did. I remember when he put out a photo of what it would look like, and it was a kind of wide lens he used on it, and it was looking great. And I like this. I like it's a solid Batmobile. But I was hyped for that part, and it's just a mess.
Yeah. So what I was saying,
again, good thing wasted in a bad movie.
Yeah, exactly. So what I would say though, like in terms of like a car chase sequence involving Batman. This has the highest like body count though. Like people get killed in this.
For real.
So like, all right, Zack. Man,
again,
you have business. Okay.
Again, it don't bother me as much as other people. Other people have a big meltdown over this. I'm like, well, it's. I mean, yeah, I get it, but it's fine. Again, if you tell a better story and learning what we learn about Batman later is fine. Like I get that. So you could do something better with it. Well,
right, exactly. And then right after all the chaos now, of course, this is where Batman and Superman finally like confront each other, right? They stay down for a bit, they talk down to each other for a bit, they spit little bars or whatnot. No lie, that tell me, do you bleed? That is a bar.
Right.
That is a bar.
Right.
Fuck with that, right? But Batman didn't get through with the kryptonite, right? But then after that now, you just basically just get this very unnecessarily long setup in terms of, all this stuff that went on with the Warlord, that was all a trick, and this is where you get the stuff with the bullet and all that kind of stuff, right? So, and listen, like I watch this, right? And I'm speaking as somebody who loves the Dark Knight trilogy, right? I actually own that shit on Blu-ray, right? I love how they try to emulate these sort of like tense, the kind of tense editing where it's like, oh, they're revealing something, but then something else setting up. And they're like real trying to build tension up now. You just watch this like, okay, but oh gosh, but you're slowing the movie down basically to tell me that Lex is behind all of this. Yeah, we know. And you could kind of tell me all this stuff in a quicker pace. Why are you slowing everything down to show me this, right? Especially in the Ultimate Edition, but they really went too far with it, right? Then, of course, you have the explosion that takes place in the US Capitol, right? And listen, right? Like, in retrospect...
This part, this is when I kind of give up on the movie. Because like, oh, the movie gonna be like actually interesting and something, you're gonna do something with it. And this one is like, oh, that they didn't do anything with it. All right, moving on.
So I am not even going to talk about the Jarpus. The less said about that shit, the better, right? Yeah. Moving on. So here's the thing, I get what he was trying to set up there with Superman coming in and all that kind of stuff, right? And then the explosion comes, right? Now, throughout the movie at this point, right, Superman going through this existential crisis, right? Because of the incident with the Warlord, people said, so you're seeing like Anderson Cooper and, Nancy Grayson people. You're seeing Jon Stewart and all too in the he wasn't in theatrical, he was in the Ultimate Edition, right? Yeah, everybody talk about, do we need Superman? And there's one person who actually make a real good point where he's just saying, he's just, a guy just trying to do the right thing. I love that, right? Because everybody else trying to overanalyze shit, It's like, no, the man just have the powers, he's just trying to do the right thing. Yeah, you may not like what he's doing, but okay, the man doing the right thing, right? I like that.
Yeah, here's my thing, right? So one of the big problems I had with this, and this is why you need a Man of Steel 2, is that they set up the conceit of if Superman were to actually show up, the somewhat semi-realistic conceit of if a Superman were to show up, we would be like very terrified at him, right? To me, you should have had a whole movie dedicated to that. Right? That's why you need a
Thank
Man of
you.
Steel 2.
Yeah.
And they just had like in the beginning of this movie, they had like just a montage of just like
Yeah.
smart people
Yeah,
and
yeah,
cult
yeah,
leaders. I forget the
talking.
guy. It was Neil deGrasse Tyson
Right,
and
yes. Why was he
oh
in this
gosh,
movie though?
yeah, right. He just like this
Sorry,
sci-fi.
sorry. I know he's a fan, but there was no need for him to be in this movie. Cause he
No,
talk
not
about
really.
like
It makes
evolutionary
sense.
stuff. I like,
No. It makes sense. It makes sense. He's like a sci-fi guy. He's like a science guy
right.
of
Mhm.
making the conceit about it. So it makes sense like a public entertainer slash what's called it intellectual type of that. He's like the most famous at the time at least. Or I don't know if he's still most famous, but he's like a guy who you go to. He's the rule of thumb for alien shit or sci-fi shit. That's fine. And they had a guy. I forget the other guy's name. He had a guy who made a fake like a cult and made a documentary about it. So the idea of how people will worship somebody and how if someone were to show up, a lot of people will worship him and that kind of stuff. And to me, you need a whole movie to just run through that, and we didn't do that. They should have again, if a Man of Steel 2 that fleshed that out properly, would have worked. But we didn't get that. We just got a quick montage that just addressed that. I thought that was terrible.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it didn't serve Superman in this universe properly. As flawed as Iron Man 2 is, Iron Man 2 address a bunch of questions, so we don't have to answer it in future movies.
Thank you.
Right?
You're right.
That's
Yeah.
the thing.
Right.
And I always make the point is that Iron Man 2 had to take all the licks, so we don't, just cool it down and address it so the future movies can just keep running. Iron Man 2 had to struggle and think for all the other movies to run, right? I think it's almost a necessary sacrifice. So even if they made a Man of Steel 2 and it would have sucked, it probably would have sucked. Maybe, we don't know. I think it would still be, okay, you do this and then you could do this better because you already get a bullshit out of the way.
Right.
Right? If you wanna answer this question, go watch this movie. That's fine. MCU did it. It mostly worked. So you do that. I want to get the MCU to should have copy. Anyway, moving on.
Exactly. So yeah, so Superman going through this existential crisis, right? Okay, right. Now I understand the context of it. All right, he couldn't see the bomb because the bomb was encased in lead, right? I get that, right? But that shot with the flames around him and the face that Henry Cavill does, right, is so cringe, dog.
Yeah, cringe.
It's like this woe is me face.
Yeah,
like, what the fuck is this, dog?
This you know.
What
I get what
is
it was
this,
again.
dog?
Ideas
Don't tell me about existential crisis. It looks terrible. That's it.
That's a mess. The whole scene no work because wait till he now pick up the bomb. Another thing is that we had to get into the oh gosh, one of my favorite actors too. Gosh, Halt on Catch Fire. He played the guy.
Lee Pace. It's Lee. Oh.
Not Lee Pace. Not Lee Pace. Oh gosh, Scoot McNairy.
Oh right. So he's the guy who played right. So basically, this is the guy who this character used to work for So he used to work for Wayne Enterprises.
Right.
He lost his legs and he gets this wheelchair, this mechanized wheelchair from Lex.
He was the one at the heart of Lex Luthor's plan.
Right.
Thing.
Yeah.
That whole messy plan that don't make a lick of sense to me.
And so overly convoluted, right? But yeah, the bomb was in the wheelchair, so it just blew.
Yeah, but then Lois discovered it because the fellow was giving him groceries, and then she looked into the fridge, and that's how she found out he was connected to Lex because Lex was giving him the money. Yeah, well, I try to make sense of this, and it's one of those things that just clumsy as hell and don't really work. Again, if you want to we gotta get it out with Civil War, but Civil War has, I think, when you think about it, an equally convoluted plan, but from the perspective of the audience and having it flow, it works a lot better because it's a movie, not really meant to be some hard logic of the plan. If the hard logic end up working out fine, that's not what matter, right? It's just you're willing to accept the stretch. That's what I say. With this, not willing to accept the stretch as much. And that whole Blum thing is like, all right, well, we're done. And they kill off Mercy apparently because Mercy was in this, but she dead now. All right, moving on.
Yeah, and nobody knew or cared who she was, right? But anyway, right?
Yeah,
so here's the thing, right? So just spare me a couple of minutes and then we'll move on and then we'll get to the main event, right? So moving quickly, right? So here's the thing, right? All of this setup, right? Right after the whole incident that took place in the African country, right? All of this setup, right? Watching this, right? It's so tedious and dull us because you're just there waiting for the fight, right? You know it's in your head, but you're waiting for it, right? And it's all this build up to it that's just so mind-numbingly dull, right? Here's the trigger. To me, it is never justified, Dread, why Batman or Superman should fight each other, though. Listen, let's spare a moment, folks. Let's spare, right? That's our Ricardo. Why should Superman really give a shit about Batman's crime fighting methods? Like, oh, he branding people and again Shang. What do I have to do with Clark Kent? I don't understand, right? And they try to say that, oh, him, Clark being so, invested in what's going on in Gotham is reminiscent of what he did when he went to the African country and stopped the warlord. No, not really. It's just the movie just wrote the character in such a way that he had to be so fixated on Batman, right? As for Batman, yes, there's the Metropolis moment, right? I get that. That makes sense,
Yes.
right? But it's really, because remember, that was a year and a half before the events of this, right? But it's really after he see the vision that he's suddenly motivated to go after Batman, Superman. But hear me out here. Let me wrap
Yeah.
up, right? Why should Batman be the one to go after Superman? Yes, I understand. We haven't seen any other metal humans at this point. I get, right? But why Batman? Now, if the film took place, right, like if it took part of the whole, like all this padding, because all this is padding, right? All this stuff with, what Lex is about, right? If they had just take a section out of that and just show why Bruce became Batman, well, sorry, why he was so motivated to continue being Batman, right? Especially after what happened in Metropolis, I would understand why Batman so motivated to go after Superman. And then also too, huge missed opportunity here, right? They could have also relate that to Bruce's parents getting killed. How he still feels about it, how he's still processing the guilt, right? The grief, sorry. They could have used all that now to justify why Batman really so hell-bent on going after
Listen,
Superman. But no, they
on
wrote the film in such a way that they just had to go after
right
each other
on
because
paper.
reasons, right? That's it. Go on.
Listen, if you was describing, listen, as I said before, if you were just describing this movie to me, I would think this not that bad. Because again, what's supposed to be the case is, this how at least I understand it, is that Batman for the first time feeling truly powerless, right? Since his thing, that way they make that connection. Since his parents' death and him becoming a bad person, and also the fact that the Metropolis get destroyed, he had no power over it. He blamed Superman for that. That is the aspect of it. The problem is that Superman himself, now they had to justify why Superman had to be part of that. And all of it's supposed to be a mix of Lex Luthor's plan, because
Mm-hmm.
Lex Luthor wanted them to fight each other and corrupt Superman for some reason, because again, they make Lex Luthor unclear. Well, demons come from the side, and Superman too good, so I have to pull him down to my level. Like, all of this is just vague allusions to nonsense. Like, that's the problem. Is that for it to make sense, and again, if somebody anybody who I've seen actually try to defend this movie sounds like a crazy person, or it sounds like it's like listening to like a religious person talk. Religious people could only talk by feelings and aesthetics. The logic of it don't really work. Like the hard logic of it don't work because none of them could like agree on their own conceits. Right? That's why it have like 12,000 Christianity or whatever it is, right? The point is they can't describe it properly, but if you were to just describe it by feelings, it works. Like if you turn off the sound in this movie and you just relight it visually, it's like an amazing little spectacle. Like, oh well, I see what Lex Luthor doing here, and you have this painting. What does this painting mean? And all of that postmodern stuff. You could play it a lot of that. All that is fine, but when it comes to the logic of it, it don't tie together particularly well because it don't flow. It's, as I say, moments versus scenes, right? It's a very vibes based movie, right? If you just get into the vibes of it and you don't think too much, it's not that bad, right? It's not that bad in that sense, right? It's still kind of bad for me, but you get the point, right? And it's like, well, the whole thing have to come together as multiple answers. Is that, well, it's all dark side stuff apparently from the future, but also their own hang-ups and also, Lex's evil plan to get things together. So that way he had to capture Martha to get Superman to go and get things because he would have killed him. But then his plan was to make a Doomsday, but the Superman didn't show back up to save him from Doomsday because Doomsday tried to punch him. Let's be clear about that. Doomsday was going to kill Lex. If Superman didn't show back up, Lex would have died from Doomsday. So the plan was to kill everybody because of Doomsday and die in sacrifice of that, and so on and so forth. None of this work already make a lick of sense. That's the problem. And again, if it had cut out Batman from the movie entirely, it might have flowed. It might have come together better. But that's not the movie we get. So ever.
Exactly. So before we get to the main event now, so wrapping up all the tedium of the second act, right? So yeah, Batman activates the bat signal and he had the suit on and he waited, right? So
Right.
here's the joke I make, right? So yes, the suit look real cool, right? Especially with the glowing eyes, all that kind of shit, right? But here's the thing, right? Rain falling, right? Because they're trying to make
Right.
this shit real epic, right? Real Matrix Revolution, kind of shit, right? But
Right.
bro,
Right.
how long you stand up in that rain with that suit on, bro? I
Yeah, he
have to
does wait.
ask.
He does
I have
wait
to
in
ask.
our
He
pool.
does there while you are
Right.
hearing,
He waited for Alfred to give him some super go, right?
while we are waiting for
Yeah.
while he is standing up there listening to the headache-inducing sounds of the musical score. Because my God, listen, that bum
Yeah.
bum bum, boy, that
Yeah.
gets to your nerves. But it really feel like somebody
Yeah.
bashing you over the skull with a hammer. I hate the
Yeah,
score
whatever.
so much.
I mean, it didn't bother me too much, but like, yeah, okay. I mean, it's
And
like, yeah, this, I supposed to take this. I supposed to take this seriously.
and
Apparently.
listen, like the score sums up the edgelordy nature of it, right? It's supposed to be
Yeah,
so dark and grim, like, oh my god, it's Batman versus Superman. Oh
yeah.
no, that's how it sounds like.
People,
Like, stop it now,
people.
stop it now.
Yeah, again, when you think more about think about it, I don't understand. You don't really understand why people bounce off of this movie so hard. But this had one of the biggest drop offs, like huge drop off for the second weekend. Once the word of mouth started spreading, this is to me this was wild west levels of drop off.
Woo.
Like it's that level of nonsense now. Once people start to hear how bad it is compared to the hype, boy. And listen, I wanted to say it later, but I'll say it now. It is utterly baffling to me that a Batman and Superman movie didn't cross $1 billion. Right?
I'll never forget you said that when you talk
Yeah,
about it for the decade. What's the decade,
in its
sorry?
initial capital run. It's kind of fucking wild, right?
Yeah.
So listen, Batman v Superman had so much hype going to it that a movie that was hinting at it could have happened in a hypothetical movie was getting hype on the internet. That is how much hype this had. That was a Will Smith movie. Remember it had a poster in the movie.
Yeah. Oh gosh,
Will Smith
I am
was
Legend.
movie.
Yeah.
I'm
No,
like,
and
right.
you
And
saw
I remember.
you saw that I kind of know I saw this in like a 90s or 2000s comic book, that first BVS logo with the logos together, right? Yeah, you see that in I Am Legend, and people like we was like, oh shit, yeah,
exactly. That is how much hype that had going to it. And for you to F up this movie so bad, and I say it before and I say it again. If Batman v Superman had a decent script, it would have make Avengers Endgame money, right? It would have make that kind of money.
Yeah.
I genuinely think it would have crossed 2 billion. It could have easily crossed 2 billion. If it had a great script like The Dark Knight, it would have crossed 2.5 billion. Easily. Like, I don't know if it would have beat Avatar, however it is, or pass Avengers Endgame. But it would be like, it would be up there. It would easily be the top thing, man. But for you to, I cannot believe that didn't cross 1 billion, Dread. That is so wild to me, Dread.
Yeah.
Batman and Superman and a movie together and didn't cross 1 billion in the initial theatrical run. That's ridiculous.
Thank you.
Absolutely ridiculous. I don't like to bring up money, yeah. But you know, people who defend this bullshit, them like to bring up money. Because they make a whole lot of hoopla about whether or not James Gunn Superman was beating Man of Steel. Like, yeah, but like James Gunn now in the height of the movies. If James Gunn movie came out 10 years ago, it would have definitely crossed 1 billion. Give me a break.
Yeah, and listen, the second show in the DCEU, Dread, you know how big of a deal it would have been if that movie was critically and commercially successful? They could watch Marvel and laugh at them, you know. But it didn't work out, right? But here's what. So before we get to the main event, right? So I just had to mention 3 moments of cringe, right? Quickly, right? First moment. So right, so Lex thugs come and kidnap Martha, right? And then Superman come and confront Lex, right? Then Lex basically do this whole diatribe and talk about, oh, you know, if he kills Batman, you know, he'll free Martha, right? And all of this is just to prove that a man could kill a god, right? So Batman could kill Superman, right? Cringe, right?
The vague logic I was getting from this is just, well, Lex just need to say and do anything to tear down Superman at all costs. And I could it's like, yeah, maybe, but like this is so convoluted and it's a mess now. Yeah. And again, if you could tell this better, you know, do this. But the problem is that Lex is just like it does make Lex a rambling maniac. And again, it come across, it feel like he don't feel like Lex Luthor, he feels like Superman's Joker.
Mm-hmm.
Joker will do some dumb shit like that.
Yeah, like not, something insane, but there's a working logic to the insanity. You're right. Yeah.
Right. But he just feels like Superman's Joker more than a Lex Luthor. No. Sorry, this is not a Lex Luthor that will work for me at all.
Right.
It's different. I'm not denying that. It's different, but it don't work.
Exactly. So
second, I feel like it's fine, but it don't work. It don't work for me.
Right. So second moment of cringe, right? So shout out to Tracy Hutchins. I had to bring this up for you, right? Yeah. When Superman runs into Lois, you know, because she go into the Daily Planet, right? And then he says, I have to write this out. I have to go to Gotham to convince him to help me, or he has to die. No one stays good in this world. And listener, is what make the scene so much more cringe is not so much a line delivery, is when he kind of floats off and then he flies. It's something about he floated off, and when you see that line, it's like, God damn, that looks so bad.
Again, this movie have a lot of notoriously bad blocking.
Yes.
But whatever, moving on. I guess something I don't super bother me, but it's in a unusually bad movie. It is like a better movie, you wouldn't care as much.
Yeah.
But like when you see that, it's like, oh.
But listen, but this is, you know, Batman being this. Sorry, this is Superman being this absolute defeatist at this point in time, right? I like, listen, whatever, right? Last but certainly not least, right? Let me go back to Diana, right? So remember the whole flash drive thing, right? So
Right.
so before the fight begins now, Bruce sent her emails. It's like, hey, check this out. I know the truth, right? Because he went to get this picture, and it's interesting that the picture is the end of Wonder Woman, right? Whatever, right? But dog, listen, and I get mad when I saw this in the theatrical cut, right? The movie had the goal to just stop everything to give us
Stop dead.
an electronic press kit
Press
of
it.
all the
Yeah,
characters that
press
coming
it.
up,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And you see it Flash, you see it Aquaman, you see the Cyborg, right? And what's so funny is that Cyborg didn't even get your own fucking movie, right? In retrospect, right?
Yeah.
I remember, listen, intent over execution, right? You're hearing a variation of the Wonder Woman theme song, huh? But it doesn't work
Right.
in this context because she just on she MacBook looking at clips, right? The clips
Yeah,
don't.
God.
The clips are meant to excite us, but they don't. Like you're watching this thing, like, okay, I'm supposed to be excited that that the Flash was in some random corner store and he hit a
Right.
man and then go on back to the fridge you stand up. That's what's supposed to get me excited by hearing dun 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 dun
Yeah.
dun. I like, but where's the
The
fight
problem,
dread?
the
You know what I
problem
mean?
with
The scene don't
here's
work at all. I'm sorry.
here's the problem. Here's the problem with the scene. I felt it should have been Wonder Woman. Like if you're doing the Wonder Woman, they could have make a better arc of having her be the one to reveal the thing, and then having her figure out that Bruce Wayne is Batman, and connect it to him, and then say, all right, this is what I was doing. Make it her arc, so it's not him figuring it out. It's her trying to hide the information. But like he said it to her and get back the hard drive. It was like, yeah, the whole thing clumsy and backward. It was like, and it didn't bother me too much. It's like it's fine, but she's way. It
Yeah.
just that whole thing just stopped dead for that nonsense. Terrible.
So now, ladies and gents, and I'm talking about the Ultimate Edition here, right?
Right.
After, and I'm excluding the title sequence and the scene at the village with Superman, right? After 1 hour and 42 minutes, I counted that shitter of
Right.
tedium and padding. We finally get to the main event: Batman versus Superman, right? So again, rain falling, Batman still in his suit, listening to the music. I just again wondering why how long he stand up there. I don't know, right? But yeah, Superman shows up, fight begins, right? And I'm gonna get into every detail about it, right? But listen, Batman, try to weaken Superman. He start off good with sound wave device. He has some Gatling guns, but Superman basically, like, this is what Superman doing, just basically picking up Batman and just throwing him about, right? Because like, listen, I don't want to fight you, but I'll still pick you and throw you across the room, right? Whatever it is, right? Boy, the kryptonite gas bombs us. Like when I
Yeah.
see kryptonite, just see that no, kryptonite gas bombs, right?
Right.
Cringe, right? It kind of cringe, right? Yeah, but this is the stuff that literally weakens Superman a great deal in this, right? And listen, I cannot be the one, I can't be the only one who think that Zack Snyder, right? Like, kind of low key enjoy seeing Superman get his ass watching this, right? I just watching this thread, I like, wow, boy, like Superman really get his ass kicking this thread. Like, yeah, he get his strength back and he throwing Batman about, right? But it's really about Batman beating the shit out of Superman, right? And listen, I know I'm in Unk phase right now, right? But listen, we get the moment that I was saying this to myself, that I imagine all the kids who watched this movie in theaters probably loved, right? And this is where Batman take this porcelain sink and smash it over the back of Superman's head, and then throw him off a staircase, and homie smash down on the floor at this basement area, and you seen like all these like what you call it, all these like pillars and stuff like that, right? That shit so unnecessarily brutal, Hus. And what make it even worse is the music, that dun 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 dun. Because
Right.
again, it is clear when you watch it in retrospect, it is clear that Zack just wants to see Superman get his ass washed, right? So I have to quote CC on this, right? This paraphrasing here, right? I do agree with what they said, where like Zack just cannot picture the idea of a do-gooder Superman. Like he just can't picture that. He can't, like, in Zack's world, Superman can't exist. So he must suffer for doing good and being this righteous man by getting his ass beat by a human being in a suit. That's why, like, when Batman like literally beating Superman up, and then literally have a moment where he take this cable, like high intensity cable, and spinning Superman around, and he just smashing through the pillars,
Right.
shit. Like, dog, all this, like, this is the fight. This is
Yeah,
what
the
we
fight.
tuned in for, boy. Like, to see Superman
Yeah,
get
the
your
fight.
ass beat. So, what is this?
Yeah, for me. Yeah, for me, the fight sucked. Right? I thought
It was a
fight.
one fight. It's a one sided
Yeah,
fight, Dread. That's what we
the
wait
fight
so
don't work
long
for me at
for.
all.
Come on, man,
Yeah, the
Dread.
fight don't work. Yeah, this fight didn't work for me at all. It just was. They just kind of rough each other for a bit. They do some gadget stuff a little bit, but none of it was engaging. Nothing. And my main problem is look, gadget versus powers. Like, where's the gadget versus powers aspect of this? And we didn't get that. I thought we'd get that or something clever, because the thing is, he had which is under the red hood. No, sorry, red sun. That
Yeah.
is how you should probably do a Superman fight, kind of like that, where
Mm.
you give him a weakened situation and then you think and you set a trap and so on. So that makes some sense. Or we get like if you remember, okay, the one where Poison Ivy infects Superman, right? And she get him and he had to run. Stuff like that or something. I don't know. Like, they gotta come up with something. Put a world engine in the Batmobile. Some fucking bullshit. Like, they gotta do something. But what we got sucked. Jess was like, boy, this is what we getting. Boy, this is a waste of time, Jared.
Yeah.
None of this works and this was engaging to me, Jared.
So
Um,
yeah. So let's wrap up the main event here, right? So big slap to face, right? All this stuff, Superman getting the ass washed, right? And then the Martin moment happened, right? And of
Yeah,
course the
God.
cringy, why you say that name, all that kind of stuff, right?
Right, yeah.
And then Lois comes like, yes, he's right. That's his mother's name. She's
Louis had to explain that to him. You're rubbish.
right. So I'm not even gonna talk about why that Martha moment is bad, right? This is the moment that felt like a slap to the face to me, right? After Superman royally gets his ass kicked by Batman, right? Upon hearing, upon the realization by Batman that, Martha's kidnapped and she needs to be rescued, while at the same time now, there's all this lightning sparkly stuff in the same containment place where Zod's ship is at, right? So, yeah, Superman decided he gonna investigate that while Batman going to save Martha, right? But listen, after a man wash your ass, Shed, and all this Martha stuff, you just like, yeah, cool, go and see my mom now.
Right.
And last point I gotta make, right? Because I had to see this, right? So, literally, all this fight, which, by the way, takes place at a count the shitter. Shout out to calculator.net. They are the unofficial sponsor of this video here. Calculator.net. 9.5 minutes this shit ran for, And throughout a majority of that fight scene is Superman getting his ass washed. But again, it ends with Superman, upon getting his ass washed by Batman, saying, yeah, Batman, go and see my mom now. I could go across the right. Yeah. Cool, yeah. You fucking serious?
Again, ideas over intent and execution.
Yes,
if you were to explain this to me and tell me on the paper, well, this is how Batman make a turn, and you put it on. Again, I think Amy Adams don't belong in this effing movie. They're going to keep bringing her in with embarrassing results.
Yeah.
And I felt like her having to show up there to tell him that is nonsense.
Thank you.
You know, why would he say save Martha? Like, the whole thing is a mess. Whatever. We mentioned it 10,000 times. I remember people laughing at that. Almost everybody, like, universally think the scene don't work.
Yeah.
Almost, I don't know anybody who think the scene work, because it's one of those like pizza like DC trivia that not that interesting, and it's like, oh yeah, right. I mean, maybe, but like the people who write this thing, they really thought they was cooking,
Yeah, and this is what stops the fighting.
The two what is this? McFerry and
Ear.
Oh, David.
Goya, my bad, Goya. Yeah, David S. Goya. Yeah. Anyway, but overall, again, I had to stress this, right? The fight ends with the reveal of the word of the name Martha. That's what ends your fight, That's what ends your fight.
Yeah.
Slap the face straight.
It really works.
Yeah, but anyway, while you get that name, right? So last chapter, and then we'll get to final thoughts, right? Aftermath, right? So now we get to actually the third act of this movie, right? Because that fight actually ends the second act, right? So we have more movie to go, right? So yeah,
Chris
Terrio, that's it, Chris Terrio, right? Yeah, you're right, yeah. So no lie, Batman going after Martha, that scene is great. That is one of the best Batman fight sequences ever. The mere fact that he kills people didn't matter to me at all. The scene is badass. Yes, it's Arkham Asylum energy that we get in here, right? Here's the thing about that scene, though, in retrospect, right? This is the only heroic thing that we see the truly heroic thing that we see Batman do in the entirety of this movie. And let me tell you why, right? Because remember, going back to what it is you see with where you see Batman for the first time and with the cops and all that kind of stuff, right? Him out here, right? When the cops come in, they're seeing all these Asian people, the inside of a cage, right? The slaves, right? And the guy who slaved them, he tied up, he handcuffed, sorry, and he have the brand on his chest and all that kind of stuff, right?
Right. Right.
Take a note, right? Batman didn't save the prisoners, he just left them there. He left the guy there, right? So he just telling the cops. One sec. He just tell them. He just leave them for the cops, right? And then one cop notice him on the wall. Oh, sorry, on the roof. That's when he slide through and then he fly up, right? That moment looked cool. Don't get me wrong, right? But Batman didn't save the prisoners, now did he? He just waited for the cops to see what happened.
I mean, again,
Understand?
stuff like that don't bother me too much because they were more afraid of Batman anyway. So
Right.
like I didn't get the sense that work on them. Remember they closed the gate back when the guy tried to open it back. It's like, all right, well they're more afraid of Batman, so Batman just kind of leave it. Stuff like that don't bother me. That's not what bother me. It's fine, whatever.
Yeah, but agree to disagree. That moment where he says Martha is the only like noteworthy moment of heroism that you see from Batman. Because everything else of this point was just, especially when he's going for the kryptonite, it's like it's about me, it's about killing Superman, man. That's what it is.
Right. Again, when what you call him, Alfred, interrogate him on that point, and he's like, no, and he turn around and say no. Like, okay, again, on paper, good beat. That's an interesting beat to say. Oh, well, okay, Batman is degenerate at this point and kind of really like going on a dark point that he was the one wanted to take the kryptonite to use it for himself instead of just taking it from Lex or whatever it is. Because he was open about the kryptonite thing with Alfred. That was the plan. So that reveal is fine, but one, pacing and structural edit is a mess. So it have no impact. And then two, it's like, well, Alfred can just call this out immediately from an earlier point in time. So him having to interrogate him and then him saying no, it's like, no, you putting an end to this. This is ridiculous. Why? At what point are you supposed to support this? Again, you could say Superman bad or whatever it is, but come on. Like it just become it dies to me a point too far.
Yeah.
Like if it was a thing, so he still support him in that point. Like, all right, this is really degenerate and doesn't work at all. Again, for a Batman character. Some people like it. Don't really work.
I don't. I saw, right? So let's talk about the elephant in the room now, Doomsday, right? So I'm not even gonna waste my time debating as to why, what kind of decision it was to take Zod and reanimate him into Doomsday. I'm not even gonna waste my time with that shit. It was in the second trailer. I'm not even gonna waste my time asking why they revealed this in the second trailer. I don't know.
So here's my problem. So here's the thing. At the time, I was thinking, it's not the worst idea to get rid of Doomsday this fast because I never liked Doomsday as a character, and he's just a good person to punch up, right? He's just a big cave troll. I never liked the character. I never cared for him. He's a character that never worked for me. But whatever. You're doing Doomsday, fine. What was kind of lame? Here's the problem. Superman have no relationship to this, and he doesn't even make mention of it. Like that would have been kind of cool if it was Zod again, and then over time you're mashing up his body, and then over time we start as the fans start to recognize, oh shit, it's Doomsday instead of Lex yelling, "You're Doomsday, shut up, Lex."
Boy, I nearly cuss when I hear that,
And then his plan was, and here's my question: did he expect to win the fight, Superman or Batman? Because if Superman did come back to help, or if Batman actually killed Superman there. Did he know that would have happened? Again, it is nonsense logic, right?
Yeah, because he unleashed. Well, while the fight was going on, he was about to unleash Doomsday. Right?
If Doomsday was going to punch him in his face, like did he plan to like die to Doomsday? I hate shit like that. This is why I don't like this kind of predicting the future to a perfect thing. That's bullshit.
And this is coming from the person who was like all anti-metahuman, but motherfucker, you made a metahuman there, Jared. Like
another dumb thing is that, well, wasn't he like connected to the ship? Because I thought that would have been a working thing because he was going to reference that. So I thought, the ship making him kind of smart, or he connected to the technology and somehow he predicted using hyper computation or whatever it is. I don't know. Like it's a clumsy set of nonsense, and anybody who defend this either bullshitting or just trying to rage bait you.
Yeah.
Because I've never heard a good explanation for this.
Right.
I've never heard a good explanation for this. It's only stuff that kind of speculated. You know who make fun of this? Justice League Action. I remember Justice League Action made fun of this with Lex Luthor. It's like he drop a up thing and it come down to hit him in his head. It's like, I predicted that. And they make fun of that because they know it's bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, moving on.
So I forgot that this moment happened, right? So yeah, the first fight with Superman Doomsday. Yeah, the military sent out, a couple of nukes, right? And one hit
Right,
Doomsday, next one hit Superman. Superman
right.
pretty much replenished his strength with the sun, blah blah blah. He come back, right?
Yeah, you do that thing from Batman. Oh god, when you get hit with a nuke in the comic, oh god, I forget the name of the comic. So Dark Knight Returns.
Right, yes,
They
yeah,
do that
Dark Knight
same thing.
Returns, yeah, yeah. Put a pin on that moment. Put a pin on that moment. I'll get to that in a little bit, right? So here's what, right? So agree to disagree. As much as Batman's fight sequence was great, to me, the best scene in this entire torture festival movie, even though it was spoiled in the trailer, was that first reveal of Wonder Woman in his suit. What makes it work
Right,
is that music. I will tell you,
right.
when I saw that shot for the first time, the audience cheer, I went nuts with this, right? Because this is the first time you were hearing this music, huh? If I'm not mistaken. And to me, why I love this piece, why I love this part so much, right, is that everything up to this point, the music was just so grim, and Wonder Woman and that music, that theme song, just brought a sense of hope to the movie. Eh? Too little, too late. It's too little, too late, right? But it works, right? And yes, she shines in that though. Just that moment, just that reveal alone, I absolutely love it. It's one of the best scenes in this movie. I would say one of the best scenes in the DCEU period, in my opinion, right? And then you just get a sense of hope, like, all right, she's showing up, she's using the sword, you know what I mean? She wait till last minute to use the lasso. That made no sense to me, but whatever, right? Superman come in, help out. Batman kind of do his thing, but to be in his defense, he say you only have one kryptonite gas bomb left, whatever. So he kind of do his thing, blah blah, right? And listen, I'm not even going to talk about the whole thing with Lois and the spear which she
And
threw
about
and then she went back for. No,
and
no,
she
no,
nearly
no, no,
fell.
no, fuck you. No, 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 right? But anyway, right? So yeah, listen, I'd have been okay with Doomsday alone dying, right? But Zack, no, again, I really don't think that he likes the idea that he could see a do-gooder Superman existing in this world. So he had to kill off Superman too. Remember in Man of Steel where you talk about the S, right? The symbol that means hope, right? Yeah, so this is where Superman gets impaled and dies. The symbol of hope,
Right.
the S, that's where one of
Yeah.
Doomsday's spikes goes through, right? I like, really, Zach? Really? Now, last point I'll make, right? Before we wrap things up, right? But here's the thing about it though, right? So this is like the first time that we ever seen Superman die, right? And back then, even when I saw the theatrical cut, I didn't give a shit, I didn't walk out in the cinema crying or complaining to my friends. I was like, the man died and I didn't care. I didn't feel that
Yeah, I
moment
couldn't give a shit.
because it
Couldn't give a
wasn't
shit.
justified. His character wasn't built up properly to the point that when he died, I supposed to feel that kind of way about it. Going back to Avengers Endgame, yes, we had many films that set up Tony Stark's character, but in Avengers Endgame, the moment with him and the daughter, so that when he dies, Dread, like all that was justified. I felt Tony's death. I had man tears when Tony died, Dread. I had nothing for Superman, right? And
Yeah, I couldn't
again,
care.
going back to Zack and talking about how groundbreaking this movie is. Yeah, I killed Superman in a movie, man. In a Hollywood movie, man. Nobody gave a shit. So here's the
Yeah.
thing, Last point I'll make, right? I want you to understand this carefully, Ricardo, right? This is why I really can't help but say that Zack really don't give a shit about Superman, right? In one night, the last night of Superman's life in this DCU, right? Prior to him being revived in Justice League, right? He nearly get killed by Superman. He nearly get killed by a nuke. And he actually gets killed by Doomsday.
Right.
All of that shit happened in one night,
Yeah.
You fucking serious?
Yeah. Moving on.
Moving on.
Well, I couldn't. But again, you had to give it to care. And like at the time, you had to care. It have people who like this movie. They kind of like it. I know. I don't know, but again, I've never seen anybody who like made a good defense of this movie and make it work. So it never really worked for me, to be honest. So that's about it. Last point, and we could also move on
Yeah,
to
and
Civil War.
we could actually wrap things up, right? But yeah,
And
make it last point.
why I think Civil War generally works better than this movie, at least in my opinion. Yeah, I just think it's just a too rushed. Like it is something that, again, if you had other movies that led up to this, like a couple of more movies, something you had before and something get led into this out that can make it work, maybe. But most of this just don't work as it is. So that was my main issue here.
Exactly. And yeah, the end was kind of interesting where you see Lex gay hair shave off in prison, and
Yeah, no,
Bruce and Diana want to start off the Justice League, but even that wasn't really
right.
properly justified. Like, oh, we should prepare ourselves, so we should find other metahumans and blah blah blah. It's like, okay, whatever. And yeah, in true Zack Snyder fashion, yeah, the funeral scene, look cool or whatnot, right? And then the end with
Another thing they don't really follow up. The follow up was kind of dumb too because like they hint at the Superman. Like usually when they do the Superman dead thing, it's almost always like a kind of coma kind of thing. And then
Mhm.
so they at the end of this, we saw the little piece of dirt floating.
Yeah,
But
that was about to say, yeah. Which
they didn't do anything
which
there.
I don't think they even justify in Justice League neither.
No, they dropped that entirely. It was all the what do you call it? It was entirely the mother box or whatever the fuck.
Right,
So it
yeah,
was like,
that
right,
thing,
how are
yeah.
we doing? Yeah, dumb.
Yeah. So as we wrap things up, right, and then we'll get to, the Captain America stuff in the next video, right? Yeah, the reason, well, one reason, right, I didn't say this at the beginning, right, but one reason why I wanted to talk about BVS for its 10th anniversary, right, is that regardless of how bad the movie is, right, and let's be real, folks, this movie is bad, eh? And I would admit it took a while for me to realize how bad it was, right? I was indifferent to it the first time I saw it, the theatrical cut that is, right? Then when the Ultimate Edition came out, I was a little, I admired it just a little bit more, right? But I'll never forget, in preparation for the Snyder cut of Justice League, third time I watching this, sir, that's when I absolutely hated the movie.
Yeah.
And then this fourth time watching it, I was like, yeah, this was torture. This was so it just felt like torturous for me to watch though because of all the flaws and just all these weird decisions, like especially from the narrative, right? That just absolutely do work, right? And yes, it really does feel rushed. It feels like, Warner Brothers put themselves in a corner and tell us, we need to put this out because, Marvel Studios putting out Civil War and Doctor Strange and saying, yes, so we had to put out something, right? We have to get in the race, right? We had to be trending too, right? So that's what we get here, right? But again, going back to what I said with Zack Snyder, looking back at the movie 10 years from when it came out, right? Acting as if this movie was so groundbreaking because of how dark the movie is, right? I will make a point, right? And then I'll just give my final thoughts to read, right? There's a good way, there's different ways to do dark material, and there's a bad way to do dark material. This film does dark material in a terrible way, right? I can understand some people thinking this movie was so good because wow, it's so R-rated and so edgy, man. Even though it's more edgelordy than edgy, right? Wow, look at how dark and brooding everything is, right? But like even all the dark brooding stuff isn't properly justified. So it just feels literally like this emo kid who hate the world taking a Batman and a Superman, action figure and pretending that they're fighting that. That's really how it feels like, right? Nothing about it works, nothing about it makes any sense. And it's just so bleak and hopeless. I'm just there like, what's the point of it all? Like what is this supposed to set up, right? We could have had a Man of Steel 2 movie, right? Yes, that is clear, right? But even in terms of just taking the bold risk of setting a lot of narratives up, it doesn't even do a proper job with that, right? But yeah, I could go on and on and on and on about how bad this movie is, right? But I'll close this, right? I still think that this is a movie that needs to be remembered, that needs to be discussed. Maybe not all the time, but it needs to be remembered as far as comic book movie history goes, right? Because I will say that this is a watershed moment as far as comic book movies go, in terms of
Right.
how the public responded, how critics responded, how fans responded, right? How to attempt to subvert material, but then you do it in like this edgelordy kind of way, right? So I would say that this movie is kind of important when it comes to comic book movie history, right? Yes, we could put it aside and say we don't want to think about it, we don't care about it, blah blah, right? But I think that no, we do need to remember that it exists. Like this kind of needed to happen, right? For subsequent films to be like, nah, we can't do it like this. We cannot do it like this, right? Even with the approach to being dark, with the approach to being edgy, this is not how you go about it, right? And then in terms of all the expectations that weren't met with this movie, yeah, this is like the poster child of how not to do this over glorified movie, right? And I'll stop there, right? But yeah, I kind of hate this movie way more than that I did before, right? So back then, this is like this, right? It was 2.5 before, then it was 2. Now I can give this a 1 out of 5, boy. Of course it sucked. This movie does not hold up at all, boy. And all the flaws, all the glaring errors, all the weird, narrative missteps, the martyr stuff, all that stuff just don't work at all. And especially the edgelord, the approaching material, just how mind-numbingly awful the music is, none of it works, right? But again, this is a show that needs to be remembered. This is not a movie that should be scrubbed off and erased from the face of comic book or even Hollywood film history. This is something that you need to remember. This is like, like a cautionary tale of what not to do, Dread, especially when it comes to big budget filmmaking. But as far as like the beginning of the end of the DCEU, yeah, who would have thought that it would have happened in the second friggin' movie, right? That's all I had to say, right? But yeah, Ricardo, before we move on to Civil War, your final thoughts looking back at it now, thinking about it now, 10 years from when it came out, and how you feel about it in terms of, comic book, and Hollywood film history.
Ultimately, a massive squandered opportunity. It's just kind of shocking how bad this was. I hated it then. I still hate it now. It didn't get better in my eyes. Again, like talking to somebody who defend it is like talking to like a crazy person to me. It's like, and I don't mean to really come across as dismissive or that, but like, yeah, like you and I clearly don't watch the same movie. Like that's how I just feel when you're watching these movies. None of it works, and I don't know. It just for me, I forget the guy's name. We call him Nerd Writer, but it's just it's something that just don't gel together particularly well, and it was just a kind of weird embarrassment. It is on my list of like my 5 least favorite movies ever. Like in terms of like expectation and versus
Actually got.
I thought what we actually got. Yeah, and it just don't work. Yeah, sorry to say it, unfortunately, but yeah, it's rough stuff. It don't work.
Yeah. And yeah, give it a rating, man. And trust me, folks, after this point, we might just make a reference to this show going forward. But believe you me, we're not gonna do a 15th anniversary or 20. No. This is the first and last anniversary. Anything that we will give to BVS, right? But yeah, your rating. Give it a 0 out of 5 if you want
Yeah,
to.
not like a zero or anything like that. Well, but it's still like a watchable movie, I suppose. But yeah, for me, I give it like a 3 or maybe a 2 out of 10. Like it just do work for me. Too little of it works. It have some things that I like, a couple of moments, but like for the most part, yeah, this just did not work for me at all. And like all of my bile hunting done exit from it, so I don't have too much to say. Other than what I was saying from before, but it's just more like, yeah, they could have just do so much more with this. All things considered, it's a damn shit. Whatever, moving on.
Yeah, moving on.